Hi everyone. So today I'm going to show you how to make a simple menstrual cup pouch. It's basically going to look like this one here. I made this just big enough to fit one menstrual cup, kind of in the style of the Leonard cup pouches, which is a very simple pouch. Basically, I have a menstrual cup coming from Feminine Wear. I ordered this Sibel economic package from them, and that one comes with just a cup and a little plastic bag with no pouch and no other accessories. So I'm going to need a pouch when it gets here, so I figured I could show you guys how to make one if you want to make one for yourself. You just need a small piece of fabric, 8.5 inches wide by 5 inches tall, and then a 12-inch piece of twill tape if you have it. I'm using a piece of seam binding that I have lying around, or you could even use a piece of yarn, just something that is going to be fairly sturdy, but that you can use as a string. So the first thing we're going to do is create the channel that the ribbon is going to pass through to close the bag. So take your fabric and turn it wrong side up. Okay. And then on one of the short ends, so one of the 5-inch sides, you want to fold the edge in just about 1/4 inch, and for about 2 inches down. So not all the way down, right? So it starts at 1/4 inch at the top here, and it kind of narrows down as it goes down. Just about to the 2-inch mark, if you can see 2 inches on my cutting mat here. And then you want to do the same thing on the opposite side. I just finger creased this. I didn't use my iron to do that. So just going to take 1/4 inch in, and then make that crease come down about 2 inches. It's not going to be 1/4 inch all the way down, right? It's going to get a little narrower down towards the bottom. And just finger creasing it. So that's just going to make sure that you don't have a raw edge when you pull the ribbon through the channel here. The rest of the project is going to have fairly raw edges, but again, this is just meant to be a quick thing that you can make to hold a menstrual cup that you don't want to have lying around. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is create the actual channel, right? So I am using a 1/2 inch wide ribbon. So I'm going to fold my fabric down 3/4 inch, because that's going to give me the 1/2 inch room I need to pass the ribbon through, and it's going to allow me to sew the channel at 1/4 inch seam allowance. So what I'm going to do here is just push my fabric up to the 3/4 inch mark, and then fold it along this like inch line here. That's just a guide for me. You can, however you feel comfortable measuring it, you should do it. I'm just going to fold this down here. And I'm just going to use a pin. Ideally, you would, an iron would be the best way to do this, but I really don't want to get out an iron right now. So I'm just going to use my pins to keep things in place here. A fairly small piece of fabric, so it shouldn't be too hard to manage without an iron. Just going to check it on the opposite side as well. Again, this doesn't need to be too precise. Any ribbon that you use will be fairly malleable, so even if it's a little bit narrow, it should still pass through. You just don't want it to be too narrow. I don't know if I said, but the ribbon should be about 12 inches long. That's going to give you enough clearance to string it through and to pull the bag taut when you want to close it. Okay, so that is what we're going to do to create the channel. So now we're going to go to the sewing machine and sew 1/4 inch from this raw edge here. So the raw edge on the fold. So we're going to sew 1/4 inch along this edge here. I guess 1/4 inch, sorry, from the raw edge and not the folded edge. And then I'm just going to sew it down to create the channel. So I'm going to reposition and take you to the sewing machine. Okay, so I'm back in the sewing machine. And I want to sew 1/4 inch from the raw edge on the left here. But of course, if you sew with a sewing machine, you know that the seam allowance is measured from the right side. So I'm realizing now I should just measure 1/2 inch from the folded edge. That's what I'm going by. So basically, whatever width of ribbon that you're using, you want to basically have your seam allowance be equal to the width of the ribbon, basically. And I give myself 1/4 inch clearance on the left side here. So I hope that makes sense. So I have this piece of tape on my machine to mark 1/2 inch. I'm going to use that as my guide. And just a regular straight stitch, nothing fancy. Okay, And again, remember we folded down, let me show you around here, like this is why we folded this edge down, so that we don't have a raw edge on the edge of the channel there, the ribbon channel. Ribbon casing, I guess is the right term. Okay, so that's 1/2 inch more. So needle in down position, back stitch a bit. And then just forward stitch the rest of the way. So this is what the channel looks like sewn up. Again, we're going to have this raw edge here, but I'm not too worried about that. But we did finish the edge of the casing on the extreme ends, left and right. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to actually create the bag shape. Okay, so again, with the fabric wrong side up, actually let me just trim away these ends here. Just some loose threads. Okay, so this is pretty simple. Now we just fold the bag in half along the using the short axis here. Maybe no, along the long axis, I guess. And then you're gonna sew. So that's the bag folded there. You're gonna sew along the 2 raw edges, the 2 open sides. I'm sorry, no. Yeah, along the 2 raw edges, right? Because this is a clean edge here. The 2 raw edges at 1/4 inch seam allowance, making sure not to sew the channel closed, right? So you're gonna start right below the stitch line that you created when you made the casing for the ribbon, 1/4 inch seam allowance down, pivot, and 1/4 inch seam allowance on the bottom, and then you're done. You just need to put the ribbon in. So you can pin it if you want to. I'm just gonna, yeah, I guess I can put some pins. So make sure that the corners are lined up properly. And then it's good to put a pin here, I think, as a marker, so you remind yourself not to sew the casing area closed. Again, this doesn't need to be too precise. You just want it to be comfortable enough size you can get the bag in and out, but if it's a little bit too big or a little bit smaller, that's fine. Okay, so I'm just gonna go back to the sewing machine and sew up the sides. I'm not gonna film that. I think that's pretty straightforward if you know how to use a sewing machine. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I just finished sewing up the sides. It's a little bit hard to see this stitch because I use coordinating thread, but you can see that the sides are sewn up here. So now I'm just going to trim it with my pinking shears to minimize the fraying. That's up to you if you want to do that. You don't have to use pinking shears, obviously. But you don't want it trimmed too close because then you can cause more fraying. So 1/4 inch seam allowance is not too bulky. You can probably just leave that be if you don't want to trim it. And again, I didn't sew over the casing, right? So this is going to give me the room to put the ribbon in. So I can turn the bag right side out, poke the corners out, okay, and there's the bag shape. So now we're just going to put the ribbon in. Let me grab a safety pin. So if you've ever strung any kind of elastic or anything before, you know how to do this. You just put a safety pin in on one end and you pass that through the channel casing, ribbon casing, I guess. I might have sewn a little bit too high up there. Okay. You just pull, so you hold on to the ribbon, the safety pin, and then you push that through and then you pull the casing over the ribbon. Okay. And 12 inches was just to make sure you had enough clearance. So you basically, if the fabric was what, 8.5 inches wide, so I basically added a few inches to that. Okay. So there you go. So you can tie a knot here. I like to go to the sewing machine and sew over this edge a few times to make sure it's secure, and then tuck that into the casing so that it doesn't show. So make sure you just kind of make sure the ribbon is flat in the casing, not too twisted. I think I might have underestimated the width of the ribbon here, but that's okay. because it fits pretty neatly. So I'm going to go to the sewing machine, sew back and forth over this a few times just to secure it, and then I'll show you how I tuck it in. Okay, so I went to the sewing machine and I just stitched back and forth several times over this. I'm just going to adjust the focus here. Okay, so I stitched back and forth over this several times. Just going to trim that raw edge there. Trim these threads. And then I'm just going to take the ribbon and pull it until I get this edge tucked into the casing. And then pull the casing over it as need be. Okay. So this is a new camera, so I'm going to have to adjust the focus and whatnot. Okay. So there you go. The raw edge is tucked in somewhere, and you have a menstrual cup pouch, and then you just pull on one end to close it. So I hope that was helpful and not too challenging. I think this is a pretty nice way to use up a scrap if you have it, and if you don't like the menstrual cup pouch that your cup came with, you can always make yourself a new one. Hope that was helpful, and thanks for watching. Bye.